Hello everyone, Lawrence here, and I am trying something a little different today. Basically, I put a PowerPoint together, and we're going to kind of run it through like a classroom presentation. It might be the best analogy, or maybe heck, I'm the instructor and I'm professing what knowledge I have to you guys. So the subject is going to be playing against Salamangreats post the July 2021 ban list. So let's get going. Let me make sure I'm clicked on that. There we go. And let's just understand their turn one board, and this is going to be a very broad understanding of it, and this is bare minimum broad understanding. They tend to end on Sunlight Wolf and a back row. Back row will almost always be some combination of Rage and Roar. Rage is the destruction, Roar is the negate. So they're going to end on one or both of those. They can guarantee one, they cannot guarantee both. Expect them to have hand traps ready for turn 2. Their combo is only going to be a 2-card combo. The other 3 cards could be Ash Blossoms, Effect Veilers, Nibirus, Phantasmes, all that good stuff. So, just temper. Okay, and the board will look something along these lines, and we will talk about this more in depth in a bit. So, how do they get there? Salamangreats Foxy, and I'm going over these cards in no particular order, by the way. Salamangreats Foxy, it's a pseudo Pot of Duality, that's one effect it has. It also special summons itself from the grave by discarding a card from the hand, or discarding a Salamangreats specific card. So it can be a Salamangreats trap, spell, monster, whatever. They also have to have a face-up spell or trap on the board. So Salamangreats Sanctuary is almost always going to be what the face-up spell or trap is. The opponent only gets one of these effects per turn. They do not get both. So if they go for the Pot of Duality, they cannot then, hey, I've got Sanctuary on the board, I'm going to discard Spinny in order to summon Foxy. That does not work. Salamangreats Jack-Jaguar. It special summons itself from the graveyard. If you can think of it kind of like, what's it called? Parallel Exceed. So if you have Balinks and the arrow points down, Salamangreats Jack-Jaguar can then summon itself to that arrow by putting a Salamangreat card back into the deck. It can be an X-Deck monster or a main deck. It requires a Salamangreat Link monster on the board with an arrow pointing to an open main monster zone, like I said. Also requires setting a Salamangreat monster from the graveyard to the deck. This is very easy for them to pull off, and they will almost always do this with their Link monsters. It's once per turn. Salamangreats Spinny discards itself to the graveyard as long as there is a monster on either side of the field. So the way this works is it's in your hand. If you have a monster and I don't, I discard it and boost your monster's attack by 500. So long as it gets in the graveyard, it really doesn't matter. Once it's in the graveyard, if they control another Salamangreat besides Spinny, it special summons itself, but is banished when it leaves the board. However, being used as an Xyz material gets around the banish because of the rules in play. So whenever it is a Salamangreat Mirage Stalio or any other Xyz monster, when it's material for that, it has technically already left the board in a sense. So that effect is essentially worked around right there, because it cannot remove itself from the board twice, if that makes any sense. Technically it does, but as far as the rules and the printings of the card, no. Once it's removed from the board once, it negates the banish requirement. Here's the big one. Salamangreats Gazelle. Special summons itself when a Salamangreat monster goes to the graveyard. It just simply says when it is sent to the graveyard, you can summon this from the hand. So, if I have Jack-Jaguar and I link it off for Balinks, well, that Jack-Jaguar just went to the graveyard and I can say, ooh, pop. If a Signet Mining decides to put a Salamangreat guard from my hand into the graveyard, such as Spinny, well, that card just went to the graveyard. Hey, I can play Gazelle now. Once it's on the field, its effect is essentially a Foolish Burial for the deck, which the deck really likes to do. It plays a lot from the graveyard. So you dump a Salamangreat card from the deck to the grave. This will usually be a trap so that it can be picked up by Sunlight Wolf. The traps will be Rage and Roar. Like I said, Roar is the negate and Rage is the destruction. If they dump Spinny, chances are they already have the trap they need. Alright, Salamangreats Circle. It's the Rhoda for Salamangreats. Easiest way to put it. It also has a protection effect, but it's not nearly as important as the Rhoda. You will see the protection effect every now and then, but almost always it's going to be the Rhoda effect. Alright. Next we have Will of the Salamangreat. This is a once per turn monster reborn that stays on the field. So it's a continuous spell card. They play it, they say, hey, I'm going to res this from the graveyard. It doesn't go anywhere. Next turn they say, hey, I'm going to do it again. It can generate even more bodies. So it sends itself to the graveyard, targets a Salamangreat Link monster, and it summons from the hand or graveyard Salamangreat monsters up to the Link rating. So if they do Heat Leo, well, they're probably going to close out the game. They're going to summon 3 bodies. They're going to go into Splash Mage, Update Jammer, Transmute Talker, and then Access Code Talker and finish the game right there. That's the game plan, if you see that happen. And like I said, if they go for the second effect, that means they're ready to close out the game. They've got it in their head, and they're just like, alright, I have my opening, let's go for this knockout. Mirage Stalio, he freshly came off the ban list. So he is a generic rank 3, keep that in mind for later. He detaches a material, such as Spinny, to special summon a body to extend combos. So, again, if it... Oh, wow, it's getting pretty dark outside. Oh, there's the rain. So, if it sends the Spinny, hey, guess what? That Spinny goes to the graveyard. It does not banish itself, even though it used its effect, so it can set up for the next turn. But it special summons a body to extend combos. It will likely be special summoning Gazelle, and then going into Gazelle's effect. If used on turn 2 as a link for a Salamangreat, it gets a free bounce. The first effect it uses, the special summoning effect, will lock you into only being able to use the effects of fire monsters, not summoning only the effects. But as the vast majority of the deck is fire, it really doesn't hurt them very much. Alright, next up we have Salamangreat Banlist, the Wheelchair Cat, because it looks like it's in a wheelchair. For paraplegic cat, wheelchair cat, cripple cat, all sorts of stuff. Super easy to summon. It is just requiring a level 1 or level 4 or lower Cyberse monster. Deck's full of them. Search a Salamangreat Sanctuary. Sanctuary is what lets them do all their reincarnation, which lets them get extra effects from their Link monsters. Banishes itself from the graveyard to protect a Salamangreat monster from destruction. However, it does not protect them from banishing or sending. So think back in the Eternal format, Dingirsu would non-targeting, non-destruction removal. Banlist couldn't protect against that. Alright, here's probably what I would be considering the big boy of the deck, Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf. If either player summons a monster to a zone it points to, up or down, it gets to grab any fire monster from the graveyard and add it to their hand. Any fire monster. Usually, if it depends on the turn, but I've noticed if it's turn 2 and beyond, it's almost always going to be Ash Blossom, so that they can just negate another play of yours. If it's turn 1, they're probably going to grab Gazelle, so you set up for turn 2. If reincarnated, so using it under the effect of Salamangreat Sanctuary, it grabs a trap from the graveyard that Salamangreat Gazelle likely dumped. Alright, next we're going to go into the non-Salamangreat cards that help them out. First we have Sea Archiver. It's a level 3 for Mirage Stalio, and it's a free body. So whenever you summon up a Link monster, it gets that kind of pseudo-parallel exceed effect where it just slaps itself from the graveyard or the hand onto the arrow it points to. Like Parallel Exceed, you can also get around that by destroying or removing or banishing, however you get rid of it, the Link monster it's pointing towards. Because if it doesn't have that Link arrow to summon to, it cannot summon itself. Speaking of Parallel Exceed, love this card. It's good in so many decks. It's free bodies. It can extend your Cyberse plays. You can go into a rank 4 with it. There's a few different things they can do. They'll probably... Most of their stuff is played by rank 3, as far as Mirage Stalio is concerned. But you've got plenty of good generic rank 4s. You've got Abyss Dweller. You've got Tornado Dragons. You've got all sorts of stuff that you can run with it. Flame Buffalo. This is the last one. So when you summon it, it doesn't do anything. But say you link it off into Banlist. It then gets to discard a Cyberse monster from the hand in order to draw 2 cards. They have plenty of Cyberse monsters. This should not be hard for them to attain. And of course, the Salamangreat monsters like to be in the graveyard, so they will discard a Salamangreat to set up a play, draw 2 cards, but that's really more of a bonus. They really, really want to discard the Salamangreat, say Spinny, say Foxy, say Jaguar, so that they can make their plays. Super easy for the deck to pull off, as it is loaded with Cyberse monsters, and Flame Buffalo is a level 4 or lower Cyberse monster, so Banlist. Signet Mining, this is going to be the last spell card I'm going to talk about. It's unlimited, discards a card, sets up the graveyard. Easy as that. Sets up the graveyard. So if you have Spinny and Signet Mining, you can go into full combo. If you have Jaguar and Signet Mining, you can do a combo. If you have, I think Foxy would still work with it, you would go into a combo, because the Signet Mining is going to grab most likely Gazelle. Alright, turn 2. I mentioned it earlier, if they have the opening, they can and will OTK with access code Talker. So here's how this is going to go. They'll summon really any 3 of their Cyberse monsters, which are super easy to pull off. First, they'll link into Splash Mage using 2 of them. Put my hand right there instead of right there. They'll use Mage Effect to res one of the sent Cyberse monsters. They'll use those remaining 2 Cyberse monsters to go into Update Jammer. Then they'll link away Mage and Jammer into Transcode Talker. Transcode Talker will res Jammer. Then they'll link those 2 away into the Access Code Talker. Access Code Talker will get 3,000 extra attack because Transcode Talker was used as material, and it will be able to attack twice because of Update Jammer. And then it will be able to get rid of 3 cards on the board that you cannot respond to because you have a Water, Earth, and I believe Update Jammer is Wind element or attribute in the graveyard that you can banish for that effect. And then once the board is clear and they have their opening, well, they just swing twice for game. So, the combo. Things to keep in mind about the combo, it's fairly flexible. They really just need, it's a 2-card combo, and it can be pretty much any 2 cards. So long as they have 1 to summon and they can dump something in the graveyard, generally speaking, they're good to go. It's very consistent. They have lots of room for draw power, like with the Pot of whatever cards. The only ones they generally won't use is like Pot of Extravagance, Pot of Prosperity. Actually, you might see Pot of Prosperity because it's just getting rid of 3. They can maybe get rid of some stuff, but their extra deck tends to be pretty tight, so I don't see Prosperity all that much. I see Desires way more than Prosperity. Strong Recovery, they can easily play the game again if they get hand trapped on turn 1. If you stop them on turn 1 and they're allowed to go into turn 3, they can keep playing the game, basically, because all their stuff is going to activate from the graveyard. So here's just an example. The deck is very flexible, but this is just kind of an example to understand what they can do. And like I said, they always require 2 cards. So they start, let's say they start with Foxy and Spinny. They're going to normal summon Foxy. They're going to link Foxy into Wheelchair Cat and grab Sanctuary. They're going to play Sanctuary. Because Sanctuary is on the board, they're going to use Foxy's effect to discard Spinny and then summon the Foxy back out. Then they are going to summon Spinny from the graveyard using its own effect because you have a Salamangreat monster on the board. So they've currently got Banlist, Foxy, and Spinny. Alright, they're going to overlay into Mirage Stalio, and then they're going to use the effect of Mirage Stalio to grab Gazelle, and then once they summon Gazelle, they're going to use Gazelle's effect to dump a trapped card, which is probably going to be Rage. They're going to link summon Sunlight Wolf with Cat and Stalio into the Sunlight Wolf, I think I just said that. Then they're going to link the Gazelle into another Wheelchair Cat. They're going to link it to a zone that the Sunlight Wolf points to, so that they can then grab the Gazelle from the graveyard and add it to their hand. This is, by the way, turn 1, as I said, so if it's turn 2, it'll probably be Ash Blossom if they used it. They're going to reincarnate, link summon the Sunlight Wolf onto the opposite extra monster zone and grab the dumped trap from the graveyard and set it that turn. This was only 2 cards. The other 3 are likely going to be hand traps, or maybe it's traps that they already had in their hand that they're going to put out on the board. At bare minimum, like I said, it's going to look something like this. So you got the Sunlight Wolf, you got the Banlist. They're going to make sure to summon the Banlist in the opposite zone so that in case the Sunlight Wolf survives, they can summon another monster to that zone right there and get the recovery and then keep going. So how do we stop it? Let's talk about Nibiru, the Primal Being. The deck is very vulnerable to Nibiru, however, it can come back next turn. So if you are going to Nibiru, hold until they finish their combo and are about to end the phase. However long it goes, they will not set up Appaloosa, even though they could, because if they set up Appaloosa, they need to use their Link monsters from Salamangreat, and if they do that, they're not going to have access to their traps, and they would rather have their Salamangreat traps than a once per turn monster negate. They will not go into Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, even though they can, because Mirage Stalio will lock that Bamboozling Gossip Shadow out of being able to use its effect to block the Nibiru because it's a wind attribute and not a fire attribute. Ash Blossom. Let's talk about this one. So, Ash Blossom, it's very generic, very reliable. There are so many cards that pull from the deck, summon from the deck, dump from the deck. You are going to, generally speaking, want to hit Gazelle. It's the only card in the deck that reliably sets up Wolf. So there are other cards that will set up Wolf. Signet Mining can dump a trap, such things. However, Gazelle, they have a way to search, they have a way to summon from the deck, and then Gazelle will do its thing, and then they can just say, all right, Sunlight Wolf from there, and pull it back, and here you go. Hitting Wheelchair Cat stops the Sanctuary Surge from going through and prevents them from reincarnating. Generally, I found it better, and this seems to be the consensus. You generally want to hit Gazelle if you have only one hand trap, but if you have two, by all means, hit both. Next up, we're going to talk about Valor and Impermanence. Same idea as Ash. You want to hit Gazelle, and if you have a second, you hit the Wheelchair Cat. Gazelle takes priority, Wheelchair Cat takes second priority. Those are really the only things you're going to hit, though. They can't chain block either one of these cards. This actually came up in a duel last Locals, I believe. They tried to chain block, and I was like, no, I'm going to do Effect Valor on your Chain 1 Gazelle. Keep in mind that these will not hit the graveyard effects. The graveyard effects will dodge it, so Spinny and Jack Jaguar are going to get around this. Cosmic Cyclone. It will banish the traps they use, so if they set the one Rage, and they get their bare minimum board, and you know it's Rage, and you Cosmic Cyclone it, well, it's not like they can actually use it, because Rage is going to destroy it. And so you're going to banish the Rage, they cannot get it back, and let's say it's Roar, they're going to force the Roar or a generic negate, such as your Solemn Judgment, Solemn whatevers. Next up, we have DD Crow. You can banish any one card, so the Salamangreat Trap, Spinny, Foxy, Jack Jaguar, Gazelle from the graveyard, and just take it out of the game. I love this card. It is my personal preferred option to use against them. Ghostbell and Skullmaster are decent lesser options in my opinion, but I'd rather just completely get rid of the card they want to use to begin with. So what I mean by that, if they try to use, say, Spinny, for example, Spinny activates from the graveyard. You can Skullmeister that. Or I can just DD Crow it, get it out of the game so that they can't use Spinny next turn. Same idea with Ghostbell. If Sunlight Wolf tries to bring that trap back to the hand, Ghostbell can say no, but they can still do it next turn. It's my personal favorite choice against the deck. I just wish there were more of them because there's so many targets you can hit. Honorable mentions. There are obviously going to be plenty of other cards, so these are some honorable mentions. And obviously I have not hit every best card. I'm sure there is something I've forgotten, but anyway, continuing. Red Reboots stops the trap, but it's a non-searchable one-of, so it's not reliable. Call by the Grave banishes a Salamangreat monster from the graveyard, but again, it is a non-searchable one-of, so you have to get lucky to draw it. Anti-Spell Fragrance Imperial Order. You can slow the deck down by slowing down their Sanctuary, slowing down their Will of the Salamangreat, slowing down their Salamangreat Circle, but they have plenty of ways to get around it. Salamangreat Foxy can destroy a card if it's on the or can destroy a spell trap. Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood, they can gain life points, or that's the card whenever they special summon a monster, you gain life points, and you can gain like probably about a nice 3k, 4k buffer on their turn 1. However, I just prefer more proactive cards. I prefer cards that are actually going to stop you from doing something rather than reward me for your actions. No material. So let's say they normal summon a monster, and then they special summon the Balinx, or they special summon the Sunlight Wolf. If you no material the Sunlight Wolf, they can't reincarnate because they have to use that Sunlight Wolf to reincarnate into the next Sunlight Wolf. And no material will stop that. They've got plenty of other things they can do to play around it, and with so much draw power in the deck anyway, they might just by chance get their traps. So, Ghost Reaper Winter Cherries, I personally find this a hidden overpowered card in the mirror match only. So what Ghost Reaper Winter Cherries does, once they summon a monster, you play Ghost Reaper Winter Cherries, and then you reveal your Sunlight Wolf, you reveal your Banlist, you reveal your whatever, and then they have to banish all copies of that from their extra deck. Shuts down the mirror match, completely useless everywhere else. Closing thoughts. Salads, I hope I've sufficiently demonstrated that they're not very scary. They're not setting up these Dragon Link, Drytron Impossible to Break boards of, like, Borload Savage, Hot Red, Appaloosa, Hieratic Seals, and Tidying. You can play around a negate and a destruction. Keep in mind, they can't use their traps without a Salamangreat Link monster, so another honorable mention that I didn't mention, so if you kaiju their Link monster, well, they lose access to their trap cards. Assuming they don't have a second, but the good Salamangreat players will make sure to have 2 Link monsters in case one gets destroyed or removed somehow. They cannot recover the cards that get banished in Archetype. There's always plenty of outside of the Archetype cards that can help out with this, but in Archetype, as far as what you're typically going to see amongst a Salamangreat meta deck, if a card's banished, it's banished. It's gone. They don't get to play with it anymore. And then just a reminder, you negate Gazelle as your first priority, and then you negate Balinx as your second. Now, obviously, you got to kind of play this by ear, but this is just a generic, generally speaking, rule to play by. Obviously, you're not going to bother negating Gazelle if they've set, I don't know how they would do it, set like 4 cards, and you know one of them's Rage, because, well, at that point, they've got everything they need. Shield the channel, subscribe. That's all I have for y'all today. Let me know in the comments. I'm going to ask for some comment interaction right now. Let me know in the comments if you prefer this kind of format, or if you prefer doing the kind of, I don't want to say professionally edited video, because by God, my videos are not professionally edited, but the professionally edited video where I put the background, I edit in the cards, edit in some text and all that stuff. Or if you prefer this one was much quicker to make. Anyway, that's all I got for y'all today. Go out there and treat each other like you have some sense.